Can you tell me what was one of the most difficult moments you had musically in your career?
I've never had a difficult moment musically because I've always been able to do anything that I heard. I've never been frustrated musically. When I started playing the organ, I just sat down and started playing. It wasn't something like I desired to do or needed somebody to show me anything. I just heard it and did it.
What was the first thing that you ever recorded, or ever played, rather than?
What?
What was the first thing you played? You weren't originally a
The first thing I ever played was a baritone horn when I was in the 5th grade in Newport, Arkansas. It was too big, the pum, 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 in a big old bell, and I had to haul that thing back and forth to school on a bus, you know. So that didn't last very long. Mary had a little lamb on the front porch, but I tell you what it did do. I didn't have to read notes and know how to do anything to play. I had a natural aptitude to play and sing all of my life. All of my life.
How did you come to play the organ? That's your main instrument, the B3.
Well, I just sat down and started playing it. I mean, I used to do stand-up. You know, I would stand out front and play the harp and singing the blues. And I just started playing. I could play Moon River. This is how it actually went down. And my friend Stan Cecil's still alive. But I could play Moon River with 3 fingers. See, at the time I was out front singing the blues. This is Memphis. You know, playing the harp, French harp, you know, chromatic harp. I picked up a chromatic harp and started playing like Stevie Wonder, you know, right away. Crazy, that's just how it operates with me. But I was in popular music on a store in Memphis, Tennessee, and I like to go to music stores on a Saturday when it's raining. It's always kind of a good place to hang out. I've done it all my life, still do. Well, I was in there one day, and my buddy Stanley Cecil, who played with the Shortcuts, I was the top band in Memphis at the time, walked in there, and I was back there playing Moon River with 3 fingers on the piano. And he said, "Damn, Bobby, I didn't know you played keyboards." And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Bobby Fischer's leaving the band, and we need a keyboard player next Saturday for our gig at Fraser Skateland." I said, "I'm in." And that was like a Tuesday, and the gig was on a Saturday. And I went home, and I said, "Well, I can work this out." I called him. I called Stan at home, and he'll back me up on this. I called him at home and said, "Hey, man, I know I can do this. You know, I hear it. I know I can do this, but I just need to know how to make chords, you know." And he said, "Well, come over a little early." And I said, went over to his mama's, and it was on Graham in Memphis. And I went over early, and he had some kind of old Barpisa organ there upstairs. You know, we're up in the attic. We were rehearsing, and he said, "That's middle C. And put your thumb on that." And then he said, that's the E, that second part of it, and put that finger there, you know, and that's a C. And you move that finger that way, and it makes it a 7th. You move this one that way, and it makes it a minor. And this is the F, which follows the C, like C, F, and G. And I did it, and just started playing, and I hadn't stopped since. It just happened just like that. And I was just like, "Oh, I got it." I mean, it was like, I don't know how to, if I look, that's when I get messed up, even now. Yeah, I just started playing, and it just happened, you know, and I don't know, I have all this this deep well of influence, you know, from my upbringing, from when I was a little bitty, you know. There's always been singing and playing going on in my life. Me doing most of it, but always, since I was a little fella.
When did you?
We rehearsed, I forget how many songs, enough to do the gig Saturday, which was like 3-4 days later, you know. And we did the gig and kept doing it. I had the first one was a Farfisa. Everything was, it had a red cabinet, and we had custom amps, all tuck and rolled, and custom tuck and roll front speakers, and Christmas lights that went round and round was our light show, you know. And my Farfisa was a red one. And everything's backwards on a Farfisa. The white notes are black and the black notes are white. So I certainly couldn't look at that, you know. And we had a great gig. And the first thing I did was, when I could find one and afford it, thank you, John DeWitt, was get my first Hammond B3, which is sitting right in the garage right now, 1966. And yeah, I got it from a guy named John DeWitt in Memphis. And I sat down to B3 and off I was sailing, you know. And I got to go in and watch Booker play and everything. So I kind of got an idea what happens with the drawbars. He used to use the drawbars. Now I think he doesn't do that as much anymore, just standard settings. But my Hammond B3 playing is like I am as an artist with my brushes. It's like those drawbars and everything are all the paint, you know, that goes into. I'm the artist, and they're the paint, you know, that goes into this thing, and it just comprises all. It just rises and falls, and it's the right textures and colors. It's a visual to me. Pretty amazing experience playing the organ, because it's never the same way twice, because I'm going through the drawbars as I'm going through, hanging on. You know, I'm just along for the ride, just like painting a painting, just along for the ride. You know, and the sound, it's a beautiful wash over everything.
So when you're playing, what goes through your mind? Anything in particular? Are you just lost in the instrument?
I'm just lost in it, and I just try to stay out of my way. You know, the way of that creative principle that's in operation. I mean, and I relate with my art. It's the same, one and the same. It's just a different brush and a different paint, you know, a different medium. It's the same thing. Once I realized that, I was okay with my painting, you know. The one creative principle, not a bunch of them, just one. You know, so I'm drawing from the same well, you know, in tune with that same thing, you know, that same creative force. It's the same thing as we're operating right here behind all of what I have to say. I was not pre-thought out or anything. It's coming out as just as like it flows, you see.
When you played with George, you sort of brought all of that with you, and he enjoyed that a lot, didn't he? He
Yeah. He let me have free reign in doing whatever I wanted to do, playing whatever instrument. No one knew how to play a pump organ. But when I was listening to, I was living with him out there for a little while at Friar Park until I got Sunny Heights, Ringo's old house. But I was there when we were recording. I was living out at Friar Park. And George played all the songs before I got to hear them, before we went in and recorded them.
Before anybody heard them.
Yeah, before anybody heard them. But I could hear that, like with My Sweet Lord. I knew that a B3 wasn't going to be right. And I also knew that there was a pump organ there. And I fired that pump organ up. I said, this would be right for this. I mean, it's not rock and roll, but it is. And me pumping on Mama's old pump organ in the living room was paid off big time, because nobody there knew how to do it, and I used it on, you know, everyone's choice when to and not to raise a voice, and on My Sweet Lord, and you know, all the things was past, and I did all the pump organ and all the Hammond B3 except for Behind That Closed Door, and that was Billy Preston on that one. But I did all the Hammond work on there. Got to play, I heard Tubular Bells, you know, and I said, man, this is dun, 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 dun. Hear that rock? I had a leather hammer. Down, 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 was great, you know. I said, these tubular bells, isn't it? Next thing you know, I walked in the studio and there were tubular bells hanging up with a leather hammer. Oh, hell, everything I wanted to do, I could do because it was right, you know.
If you said it to George, he was like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah. Give me the space to do it, you know.
Right.
Because I mean, background parts, horn parts. Yeah, man, I got Bobby Keys and Jim Price got pissed off at me because George said, I don't know anything about any horn parts. He said, you guys just came from Delaney and Bonnie. He said, do you know about horn parts? I said, well, I gather they're the extension of the organ, so I'm your man, you know.
Just like the piano. Do you know how to play piano? Yes, I do. You know how to make horn parts happen? Yes, I do.
Well, so I went out and I can't remember what it was, but Bobby and I said, Jim, I told him, I said, he asked me to come out here and help you guys get some parts together. And boy,
Bobby Keys didn't like
that.
that.
He got his feathers ruffled a little bit. And so I lent whatever hand I could, and then finally it was a little too much pressure for me, so I walked on out. You know, but yeah, I had a hand in the horns, but everything that I wanted to do, I got to do, you know. The background parts, you know, the Pope Bone 51% of General Motors. And
did you write those with Eric, or did you just...
Background parts, you know, well, it just, I could sing them, you know. I'd been singing with Delaney and Bonnie and friends, so I knew all of my R&B background. So I did, you know, yeah, those are my parts, you know. It was simple because... Chant in the name of the Lord and you be free. The Lord is waiting on you, all they're waiting to see. I mean, you knew the part was there. He was already singing it. George was singing it. All I had to do was sing a second part harmony, you know, and like My Sweet Lord, it's just George and me. And Eric wasn't there. It was just George and me. And he had all these, you know, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare, Krishna Vedu, and all these different things. And I was singing the second part harmony, and he was singing the lead melody harmony, and it was just me and George in the vocal booth. And he had all these things written. I said, "What the hell is all this?" And I said, "I don't get it." He said, "Those are all different names of God." I said, well, you know, my dad was a preacher, and they only said there was one, you know. This is a little too much for me. But I was reading all of these different names. It was pretty interesting. I could have kept that, I guess, but I didn't want to keep anything. Everything, see, I never took anything because I carried it with me when I left. The whole experience, I embodied everything. I was totally dialed in on that whole experience. I knew where everybody was, what everybody was doing, my role in it. You know, I was just the instrument, you know, letting that thing that I talk about, the creative principle, then, without me even knowing it, that's what I was. And it was great. It was great. I love the parts that I played, the role that I had. It wasn't an egotistical situation at all. At first, I was the only American there. So there was a little resentment with some of the keyboard guys, or one of them anyway, about me being there, but that's all right, you know.
Was there any difficulties in the studio when you were recording at all?
None whatsoever. How we did it, because one time there was like 12, 14 people in there, and all at once, you know, Badfinger were up against the wall. Those guys, they were sweet guys. They were always right there up against the wall. And George, this is what we're going to do tonight. You know, he'd run it down. Everybody's listening, taking notes, you know, making notes, and I'm just sitting there listening. Of course, I'd already heard it, but I'm just sitting there listening. And, you know, Eric's getting his part together. After everybody, he's through running it down, we play. We start, you know, and everybody's kind of dropping in the front, and then we play it. And then the next thing you know, it's like roll tape, and that was it.
So it's all
that
live.
was it. Yeah.
This is live.
Oh yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Everything was live. You know, he was singing live. You know.
Wow.
Now I don't know what vocals he used of his, but all of his vocals were great. And I'm sure he went in and redid some of them, but everything was live. When you got two drums, Alan White and Ringo Starr, or Alan White and Jim Gordon, or Jim Gordon and Ringo Starr. You got Carl Radle and Klaus Bormann, both at one point playing bass. We had two basses. Phil Collins was banging away on a conga, and I'm sitting between Ringo and Alan White, and it was wild. And you got Eric, you got all the Bad Finger Boys, you got Eric, Billy Preston. It was on wah wah, I mean, it was total, and both Garys, the whole thing was going. The same time, I played I played the upbeat. I was late for the session, so when I came in, everybody was already there, and they were already started. So I just jumped in on the only instrument available, and that was that Wurlitzer. And I played the only place I could play. That was on the upbeat because everybody was on the downbeat, and so I played the upbeat, and so that the wide open field for me,
So what was it like? Did George think that this was going to be a huge record? Was that feeling in the air at the time?
No, it wasn't that. No, I know that he knew that it was going to be.
He was happy with his record, wasn't he?
Yeah. So much so, we recorded too much material, and the spillover became living in a material world. The better part of living in the material world. Try some, buy some.
Who else was showing up in the sessions? Wasn't it a buzz going around at the time?
Oh, everybody. John Lennon and Yoko Ono came with pictures of their naked selves, front and back. John and Yoko came.
What were they dressed like when they showed
Peter
up?
Frampton came, but I think he played on the Pete Drake sessions. And when we did All Things Must Pass, we're in the control room. It's, Phil Spector and all the band and everybody's up there, and I did that when the song was coming, and Phil Spector stopped and said, "Who's that? Who did that?" And it was kind of like a little boy in school, I did. He said, "Go out there and get on the microphone and do that again." And so I went out and only a clearer whistle, and I said, really, this part would be really cool if you got Pete Drake over here to do it on pedal steel. And 2 days later, Pete Drake was there, and there was a couple of days that were Pete Drake sessions, and so Pete got to be on the thing too. I saw him in Nashville years later, and he thanked me for getting him on the thing.
I was just going to ask you if he knew about you getting him there.
Yeah, he did. They told him.
Well, that's awesome. Who else was at the sessions? Anybody? Was there anybody else on there that wasn't credited for the record?
No. Everybody got credited for the record.
And then there were some extra songs. You guys did some jams that turned into...
Yeah, the Apple jams. And that was really cool. Like I said, at one point, I was the only American on there, that's for sure. But then Jim came in and Carl came these were like in days of each other. But we got to know each other by jamming. Alan White, Klaus, Eric, George, me,
So you weren't
Gary Booker and Gary Wright. And so we really all didn't know each other as a whole. But it was like everybody... Willie Nelson once said, he told you and me, that you don't get any closer to somebody or get to know them any more than sharing music with them. And that was exactly what was going on there. It was our soul, the one soul going through ever, introducing us all together, so we could do it. That's where I came in. We did 2 jam sessions, and the second one I came in, I don't know if I went out to get something to eat and come back, but my organ was taken. One of those Garys was on my organ, and I went, "Oh man!" And all that was left was the grand piano. And Eric said, told him, I said, there's nothing but the piano left. He said, well, get over and play it. I said, I don't play piano. He said, it's a good time to start. And so I said, okay. And so I started drawing from that well, you know, Memphis Slim, My Mama, Jerry Lee Lewis, Little Richard, Fast Domino. And the first thing I did was, I believe it's I Remember Jeep. You know, and you can hear me clang 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 clang. I was just banging the hell out of it, you know, and it just happened just like that. And so that was the first time I played piano. Now I played my mama's pump organ, but organ and piano, that's like banjo and guitar. You know, those the two different instruments all together. But that learning mama's pump organ, how to play that, really panned out. And we did this rock and roll thing. After we got finished doing it, I Remember Jeep, and it turned into something. And other one, Out of the Blue, I'm playing B3 on. But after we did I Remember Jeep, George said, he went into the big room and then he came back out and he said, hey man, your dad was a minister. Can you come in here and play some gospel piano on this? I said, sure. I only just played the one song just then. Went into the other room and Beware of Darkness. That's the first time I ever played a piano. Second time I ever played piano, period. And the second time I played it was, one time I played it was in the jam, walked into the other room and recorded Beware of Darkness. That was pretty wild. I mean, I was hitting them hard and octaves and hitting them as hard as possible, you know, because I wanted to be clear and feel that da-da, you know. And I hit one real low, real hard, and the string went boing and flew through the piano, and the whole session was brought to a screeching halt. And man, BW strikes again, you know. But it was like I hit that low C. I guess it must have been that thing, that chi or key thing they call it. But I hit it with intensity and it broke the string, the low C on the grand piano. I had to bring in the guy. He strung up a C note on there, and we kicked right back out, or doing it again, and got it done. Pretty amazing, you know. So much happened on the first time I ever played piano, you know.